I've gotten in a few arguments about the real impact of injuries. It's one of those things where the answer to it is nuance, right? Because you still got to find a way to get some of these wins. We got to be able to talk about this injury and context and understand that it's both and, right? It's not just one or the other. There's things the Bulls aren't doing. There's things Billy Donovan isn't doing that's leading for us not to win these games.
Now, at full strength, do I think we have the chance to compete? Can we win out the East? Hell yeah, I definitely do. But at the end of the day, man, it's really tough as constructed, bro. Like when you look at some of these teams coming into the season, it was like, man, these teams are tough. And now you're talking about some of the end season, acquisitions and moves these rosters have made, and that shit becomes exponentially harder, right? So, to your point, man, I think for us Bulls fans, we have to be realistic. We have to realize, if we do not have our full team, like, we're basically a glorified Drew League team, bro. Word to my boy DT, man. That's what he said. And it's not, because you look at our offense, bro, and it's like we only have one guy right now who's capable of truly playing point guard. That's Ayo, and he's a rookie. We are leaning on a rookie to play point in the NBA. It's just a tough spot to be in. So without having Lonzo, without having Caruso back, we gotta think about what our team truly is. We were already struggling in the front court, and now you talk about we're losing our backcourt, and we had two guys who were playing at all defensive team levels, man. We had two guys who, the first 2 months of the season, had a case to be the two first team all defense. Like, I've had a buddy tell me, like, man, I'm tired of Zoe and Caruso being the reason we can't win games. I'm like, man, I think as Chicago fans, a lot of people we really undervalue what they mean to this team.
Yeah.
Lonzo was averaging, I think he was averaging like 12, 6, and 6 for us. Bro, Lonzo gets the majority of his points. I want to say 85% from three.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about a guy who was shooting 43% from the field and 42% from three.
Right.
He took 7 threes a game and he was making 3.5.
Right.
That is gone now. And you're talking about a premier defender on the perimeter. So now Zach and DeMar are not guarding guys, so they wouldn't have to. Then you have Caruso, who's coming in, guarding bigger guys, changing place, championship caliber, high IQ.
Taking charges.
Getting
offensive fouls, going on over top of screens,
locking people down, just really distorting defenses, man. And it's just like, when you take that away, it got to the point where teams were actively game planning not to see Caruso and Zoe in action. Like, they were going away, depending on who's guarding them, they were going away from them because of how much havoc those two guys were. And then when they were both on the floor together, like, it was a fucking wrap. What are your guards supposed to do? You had two of the best guys who played on-ball and off-ball defense. So for me, without them, it's just like, that's a wrap, bro. Like, there's not much that we can do. And I think people need to be realistic about that. And also give them their credit about how great they are. Like, Mark and AK constructed this team flawlessly, but we are definitely the type of team that we are a well-oiled machine together. We're not the type of team that could be like, that fucking 96 Honda Civic and all the fucking parts break down, but as long as that engine is still humming, bro, you know what I'm saying? 2018 Brown with that catch, as long as that engine is there, that motherfucker's gonna go. Like, we're not that type of team.
And so I'm glad you brought that up, because I've gotten in a few arguments about the real impact of injuries, and it's one of those things where the answer to it is nuance, right? Because obviously, like you just said, you got all NBA level defenders. You have one of the best outside shooters in the NBA. That is going to have an impact on your team. But there's also an angle of you still got to find a way to get some of these wins. Like I said, this record is terrible. What is it? 1-13. I'll be okay if it was still a losing record. I'd be okay if it was. Even 500. It's an idealistic way to look at it, but this is god awful. And that's why I'm like, we got to be able to talk about this injury and context and understand that it's both and, right? It's not just one or the other. There's things the Bulls aren't doing. There's things Billy Donovan isn't doing that's leading for us not to win these games. Like you mentioned earlier as well, a lot of these games have been close. A lot of these games that came down to late game execution. We talked about the Bucks game last night. Zach comes down, hits a huge three, cuts the lead to 2, and all 5 of the Bulls players are like pressed up, looking to press. I got DeMar DeRozan. I watched the video. DeMar is like looking around, like clearly confused as to what defense they're about to play. If they're trapping, if they're full court pressing, and Javon Carter is just behind the whole defense for a touchdown pass. They get an easy layup. So stuff like that, right? Stuff like that is what really is, starting to bother me. And I look at a team like the Heat, right? So the Heat this season, they have beaten the Suns, they've beaten the Bucks, they beat the Bulls, and they've beaten one more team that I can't think off the top of my head without Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Granted, their organization has been doing this for a while. They've been playing together for years. They have a system in place that runs flawlessly. So a lot of times, not to like devalue Jimmy Butler or Bam, but you can kind of plug and play those guys. And you got Kyle Lowry still, who's amazing, who beat us at one game, and Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. So you still got these guys that are going to play the system right. You got guys that are committed to defend. And so they're able to get those wins. And, I want to be a little critical on Billy, but I even hear Billy talk about it, especially after that Miami game. It's like, we have to give the Bulls some grace because it's year one. And you can't just develop all those habits with a snap of your fingers and just expect these guys to be, locked in to playing this style of basketball. It's incredibly nuanced, this discussion, when it comes to how these Bulls are playing these games. And the silver lining, like we both talked about, is that we have guys that have real impact on winning basketball that aren't playing, right? It's not like we're just missing like a Troy Brown we have guys that are actually impact players that are missing basketball. And so what I hope is that we get maybe 10 games with all 3 of those guys back. Then the judgment comes, then I can really sit back and be like, okay, this is who we are. This is how I feel about us going to the playoffs.